I called myself an atheist. I was adamant there was nothing else to life. I recall my soul literally jumping outside of the body, and I could see my body sitting in the car. But it felt like I was there for a long time. I was like hanging around, I felt like there was other energies around. So like my atheist identity completely shattered, and I was like, okay, well, this is interesting.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of the Soul Inspired. Today I have Morgana Marie. She's coming over all the way from the UK, so I'm really excited to talk to her. And she's had three different experiences in the near-death experience realm, and she's also an energy healer and a psychic medium. So thank you, Morgana, for being on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone from the UK. Nice to
I
be
love
here.
I always love when someone says hi, it's like it just makes it a little more interactive too, right? Because they're
Of
probably like, "Oh, hey."
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Not
speaking to
everybody does
people.
that. Yeah, so no, I appreciate that, and I'm sure the audience appreciates it. So I usually right away get into the first question, and I really want to dig into you a little bit and to who you are and who you've been your whole life. And if you can think of now, it might be around one of these experiences. It could be.
Yeah,
Sometimes people say it's something else that triggered things. But if you
yeah.
can think of a moment in your life when things really shifted into becoming who you are now, the changes spiritually, the things you're doing now, who were you before that happened? Could you give me just a little breakdown of who you were?
Yeah, before that happened, I was not spiritual at all. I was very shut off to any form of spirituality. I was actually an atheist. I called myself an atheist. I was adamant there was nothing else to life. And I would say was very introverted, very quiet, a child, even a teenager. I would be quite very quiet, and then I would kind of let loose going out and do the opposite in the extremes. And yeah, I didn't see that there was any more to life. And I was just literally just waking up every day, not knowing why I was waking up. I was just like, oh, okay, it's another day, but it was grinding. It was hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
And would that have been in like your teenage years, or what age area would that have been around?
That's more like my 20s. Yeah, my
Oh.
20s.
So all
Yeah,
the way up to 20s, you were
pretty
kind of
much.
just living by the seat of your pants, just kind of waking up, doing what you do, and you didn't really understand the point of things.
Yeah. I was
Uh,
very lost, very confused. And I was just like, what?
Anybody that's seen any of my other episodes, I talk about it a lot because that's what brought me through anxiety in my like 16, 17 years old. I was like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? I remember walking to school one day. I've actually never mentioned this. I remember walking to school one day and looking, I'm just walking. I can see my arms moving. And I remember seeing my arms moving and thinking, like, why? Like, what is this? Like, it's
Yeah.
I was so in touch with, and I was doing music. I was starting into my music journey of trying to understand my soul and questioning things. So that's where my brain was like, why do I even have arms flying around? Like, what is it was so but like and then I'd
Wow.
go to school and I'd be kind of sad about it. Seems like you kind of had somewhat
Yeah.
the same. So what happened when that shifted? So maybe we'll get right into it then, because you're going into your 20s, able to explain what happened?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I actually got into a relationship with someone, and I remember my mum saying, "Be careful about who you hang around with, because you end up becoming like them."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Oh no, no, don't. It's fine. Like, it's fine. Like, this person's really great. I've just met them." And literally within a few months, I started to get really depressed and very anxious and kind of suicidal, and just really didn't want to be alive, and pretty much. And I was thinking, hang on a second. What's actually going on here? Maybe there was an element of truth here with what my mum was saying at the time, but I was like, no, I completely dismissed it. And I started realizing that I was an empath. Didn't really know I had this term of what was an empath, but I knew I was sensitive. I knew I was attracting people around me that were needing some healing, but I was needing healing too. So I was pretty much attracting what I needed. And I had this awareness. And then I realized, oh wow, I'm starting to be like this person that I'm with. And I didn't know how to get out of it. So I tried to get out of it the hard way. And that was when it all started, all this awareness that, yeah, of my abilities and my empath ability, that's what I call it.
Wow. So yours came in from bringing in another person in your life
Yes.
and the energy around that person bringing you even darker and deeper down
Yeah.
down into a place that you
Yeah.
didn't want. And you were already kind of moving in that direction, right? So this didn't
Yeah.
help. It probably
Yeah.
really accelerated that and got you into a okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you're going into this bad situation now. What was it that triggered the wake up? Was it the first experience you had?
It was because I remember being in Camden in London. I was actually talking about this the other day to a friend, and I remember getting out of a gig, and I just wanted to leave. I was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. Gonna go to the station and throw myself in front of a train. And I was like, hang on a second. And then my life kind of just flashed. So I felt like my body came out of my body, like my soul came out of the body. And then before I knew it, I was in like a police car. I was like, what's that? What happened? You know, what happened? And then I ended up in a I think it was like a rehab center overnight or something like that. I don't know. It was just all a blur. Like honestly, it was just like 3 hours had gone into 5 minutes. Time
Oh,
had completely minimized.
interesting.
Very
So,
confusing time,
wow, I haven't had this before in the way that you described it. So you get to the lowest of the low.
pretty much.
Some people call that the dark night of the soul. I've heard that term before. I've had something similar, not as bad as that, but it
Yeah,
sounds like you're human, you're you had decided it was done and you were going to
pretty
do
much.
something about it. And see that even that decision alone, you don't even have to do the thing that you need to do, like because you've made the decision, right? Which is a terrible,
Yes,
sad decision that someone would get to.
yes,
So the
yes,
next after that, it sounds like everything just kind of blurred out because you probably were in an autopilot. I'm I'm thinking more from the scientific place, I'm thinking
yeah.
from the brain. So you're now on autopilot to go do what you're going to do. You don't know then how you got in the back of a cop car or to the rehab center? Even to this day, you don't know?
Don't remember it. Oh, I think I can remember people like holding me up and t taking me in. I think I remember someone ringing the phone to call someone,
Mm,
but I don't remember much of it. I mean, I've processed this now, but it's like, yeah, it was all just a blur. I just
mhm.
remember this like checking in and out of the body, and my soul was leaving the body and coming back.
Wow. So, okay. So on the physical, you had decided that things were going to happen and you attempted. And
Yeah,
somehow people around you, the energies, the human people around you, they saved your life essentially. They saved you
yeah,
from doing that.
yeah,
Wow. Okay. But
yeah.
from a spiritual sense, then let's dig in just a little further. Can you, and I know it's probably hard to do because you already explained it, but can you dig in a little bit further as to what it felt like? Like, what do you mean you jumped in and out? Was it would we call this like an out of body experience or like what do you recall happening?
Yeah, I recall my soul literally jumping outside of the body, and I could see my body sitting in the car. I was like looking at myself in the car. And then I got to this hospital, wherever it was, and I would sort of see like myself there, sat there. So multiple times it was like this jolt coming out
Mm-hmm.
of the body, that soul experience, probably like an outer body experience
Mm-hmm.
where I kept checking, jumping out. I call it body hop, like soul body hopping. The our souls do that sometimes. It's,
Yeah.
especially if we're on the spectrum, our
Yeah.
souls can do that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So see this really again, my fascination with near-death experience has been going on a long time, and this really talks closely about the fact that you didn't even have to die to start the transition process. Like you were already your soul was
Hmm.
already kind of like, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, right? And then, which is a whole different topic on its own because it says that it's not really about the flat line all the time. Like, that eventually would happen. Like if you stayed out of there and you went to wherever we're going, I'm sure
Yeah.
something would have broke down, bodily wise, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
And they would have said, "Oh, what a fluky thing that happened. She died of a broken heart," or you hear that term all the time.
Yeah.
So, you hear about elderly people, they live till 100 and the one dies and the other one dies 2 weeks later. And you're like, how did that happen?
Yes.
Well, because they
Yes.
probably said, okay, I'm ready to go. And there was nothing, no indication of it. It's just,
Yeah.
that's what's coming to me just hearing your story. It's
Yeah.
different because you were in your young years of trying to figure out who you were. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's your first experience. So you see yourself in the hospital. I'm assuming you get out of the hospital, or was there something that did you wake from this and think, whoa, what is going on? Like, what was going on in your mind, and how did that affect you in the next little bit in your life?
Yeah. I remember just feeling like a zombie, and I don't even know how I spoke at the time, but they were asking me questions and I had to kind of go through some tests and things like that. And I had to basically be assessed to see if it was safe for me to go home. And then somehow someone booked like a cab and then I was basically taken home. But I felt like a zombie, like my soul it was still like checking in and checking out.
Mm,
I felt like my body was there, but the soul wasn't there. But eventually it felt safe enough because I felt safe enough to be here, to belong here, and then feel safe enough to go into this car and go back home.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah, it
thanks for
was pretty.
sharing that first experience. So you're in a dark place, you have these experiences going on, and you then go home.
Yes.
Did this type of I want to use the word despair. It sounds like you were in like this despair that caused you to
Yes.
get to this place. That's the what comes to me. Did this continue for a while longer? Is this what led into other experiences, or were you all of a sudden like cured of all your problems and you like woke up with this, I'm ready to go? Like what?
No,
Okay. So
I
yeah.
wish not.
Yeah. Curious curious what happened next.
So what happened after? I was like, oh, everything looks different. Like, people look different. I was like, where am I? What? So it was like I was almost reborn. It's like
Wow.
I saw things from a different perspective. And I looked around me and I was like, well, what's this body? And people were talking to me about it, didn't really understand them. It was like my consciousness had expanded, but I was no longer on that frequency anymore. So
Mm,
my consciousness had reached a certain level, and it was like a grieving process I had to go through to grieve my lower consciousness, my old kind of ego constructs, to actually learn how to be here and how to belong here. And that's when my healing journey sort of started. That's kind of how I got into energy work and healing, because I actually had to go and process all of this stuff. But it was like the only way I can describe it is I was seeing things on a higher plane, like a higher level of consciousness. So everyone around me, like I was like, humans? What do you mean, humans? People talking to me in English or different languages. It just doesn't make any sense.
mm.
It was like I'd gone to a different place, come back, be planted here, and it was just so confusing for me.
I'm gonna tell you too, just by I mean, I'm basically doing this for a living now. I talk to a lot of people who've died and come back, and this seems that this is common. This is common. It's
Yeah.
the word reborn I hear often, and I don't know if that's because when you jump out, I don't know whether you're shifting your soul is like getting re-energized. Who knows what's going on? And then you're coming back in, and then it's like, oh, what was I doing before? That was weird. I don't know. Like now I'm here now.
Yes.
And that's a bizarre feeling, I would imagine. When you say that, when you were looking at people and you were aware of people in your surrounding from a more um, conscious, you were in a more soulful place. Like, did you feel them differently, or what do you mean by that? Like, was there energy?
Yes.
Could you feel their energy more than you were before? Like, you
Yeah.
were more aware?
Yes. Yes. I would sense things about people, and I would look at my partner and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm done." And it was just like, oh, okay, that's easy. And then I left. And then I was like, I kind of just understood a lot of things that I had no answers to before. It was
Mm.
clarity. It was pure clarity. And it was like my gifts were awakened, my ability was awakened. I understood and had more empathy for people, which I never had before that. I was very angry with people in life. Like I was the opposite. And it was like, oh, my heart was more open and I had more compassion for myself and others. So everything started to make more sense. And
Did the people around you notice a change? Like, was there, or did that take a while? Because you're probably almost in your own space at this time, trying to
yeah,
realign yourself with your surroundings. I'm just
yeah.
curious.
I didn't really have many people at the time, so I can't
Mm-hmm.
really remember, but I'm pretty sure my parents would have noticed a difference, but
Mm-hmm.
without really cognitively acknowledging that. But yeah, just looking at it now, I definitely think that people would have noticed a difference in my energy.
Yeah, one
And
thing that always fascinates me or makes me wonder about is like, so when we're here and we're living this life, we have our brain and we have our memory, we have thoughts and memory and things like that, right? I've always wondered because sometimes I'll talk to people who've had NDEs and they come back and they can remember everything. And then there's other people that come back and they remember nothing, yet but they feel everything. Like they feel like they made a choice to come back. They feel like there's all these feelings. And it's like, I
mm,
almost wonder if there's like this different kind of memory that we don't remember anything, meaning here you are in this dark place, you have this really close call with death, and you're in and out of your body, in and out of your body, and it's almost blur like. And
yes,
like, I guess what I'm saying is there may have been things that happened to you
yes,
when you were out that you can't recall for whatever reason. It's almost because that's a different piece of you now, because now you're here again, right? Like it's almost like,
yeah,
is this making sense? I'm
yeah, it
trying
does.
to, and
Yeah,
I'm
it does
wondering
make
if,
sense.
yeah, because when you come back and you're looking around and everything looks different, well, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
you must have been wondering that, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely saw like weird. I would say I saw like these kind of strange entities or energies around when I went and I left. It was like these weird alien energies. Like didn't have bodies, but it was just like a pure form of energy. And then the only way I can describe it is just like black form, and it's like loads of white circles and like a tunnel. And then it was like that was zapped and then back. And I was
So
gone.
okay, so that's kind of what you can remember.
Yeah,
Just so
yeah,
it's just like flashes.
yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's very
And
black and white.
would you, if you were to think of it, would that feel like a dream to you, or did it feel real? Did it feel like an existence of you, like a part of you that was more real?
Yeah, because I felt like I was part of it, but I wasn't. I never had to have the body. It was just my soul was there,
Mm,
so the energy was there, the soul was there. Yeah, I definitely feel like it was me. It was not a dream. Dreams are very different.
hmm.
Yeah, because dreams are more grounded and integrated. This was like not
Yeah.
even part of the body.
This speaks to that whole idea that we're here right now. I'm talking to you. We're having a good time. We're talking, but our souls, our energy is also doing something else. It's
Yes.
also in another existence doing something else that we can't comprehend. And when you left your body, you were there. You were
Yeah.
like, you were there. And then you come back and you're like, wait, what? Like, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
as an atheist, I would think that would be almost like that would take some time to,
Yeah.
you know, but
Yeah.
I think what it sounded like you is you just didn't have any belief at all in anything. And then here
No.
you are having this experience. Yeah.
It was like the veil had been lifted off my eyes and I could see things differently. And yeah, I that's when I started to wake up, I feel. Yeah.
You mentioned that you've had three different experiences, right? So you had
Yeah.
two more experiences after this. So what happened at your life at that point that led up to this next experience? Let's go into that.
Yeah, yeah, this one was a few years later, after I'd gone for a big healing journey and I was kind of driving one day. I was driving on the motorway and all of a sudden I just hit this car behind me. I hadn't seen it. I don't know, just checked out again. It's like my soul jumped out again and smashed into the back of this car. I swerved into the side. And again, it was like this flash of lights and like just so much going on. And I was like, what just happened? And honestly, to this day, I've processed this now. I believe in that moment, it wasn't just a near-death experience. It was where there was an entity or an energy that was taking over. And I was aware of that something was trying to control me to stop me from going forward with my journey and transcending and ascending, because we live in a very sort
Mm.
of controlled reality. And that's the energy and the healing that I've kind of got awareness around. But at the time, yeah, it was like the body was there. I had this accident. There was glass shattered everywhere, and the car in front of me, it was like I was on a different. I don't know where I was. It was just so confusing, and it's like my whole body had gone through the car, and then I'd gone out and then come back again.
Wow. So did you physically go out of the car or you were in the
No,
car
I was in the car. My body was in the car.
and e-
Luckily, I was strapped in. I was safe,
and
and
everybody was okay at the end?
everyone was fine. Luckily,
Luckily, yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you felt as if your energy was still floaty and there was some kind of energetic interference that was trying
yeah,
to take you off your path.
yeah.
Wow.
100%.
See, and there could be people that that's happening to, but they're not aware of it. See, because you were going through the healing journey and because of your previous experience, you were more aware from a
Yeah,
spiritual sense. So that's probably why you're saying it. Because some people might be listening and be like, "Hey, wait, what? Like, I don't want
I know.
no entity taking over my life." And I think
I know.
you're describing it that way because I believe you were a little closer to understanding the way energy was working. So
Yes.
that's were you in a good place before that happened? Because you said there was a couple years there of healing. Were you
Yeah.
now like a happier person, or did you still
Yeah.
have some of those negativities going around you?
I was very happy. I felt really healed. I felt like I was in a great place. I was just literally driving to work, and, I was just driving like a normal person driving on the motorway. And yeah, I was, from what I know, I was fine. I mean, I look back then and I was like pretty happy.
Mm,
So it wasn't like I
interesting.
wanted to leave, but my soul probably did want to leave at some point. I don't know. But yeah, maybe it was like checking out again.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you end up being okay from that, but
Yeah.
it's a close call with death, but you didn't actually have as do you think that the first one was more of a spiritual feeling than this one?
Yes, 100%, because that I felt like I actually did like near enough die, but I didn't. It was just like one split second, and being in that scenario. But it was like the soul had kind of the body died, but the soul hadn't. So
Hmm.
like, yeah, it was a very confusing time. That was definitely the deepest one, I feel.
Was the second one
Yeah.
or the first one?
The first one.
The first one, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
because that really transformed who you are, right? And
massively,
changed some
massively.
things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we get too deep in some of the questions I have, how did the last one happen? The most recent one, I guess you'd say. Hopefully the last one
Yeah,
that you
that
experienced.
all happens in prees, right? Apparently.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was another car one. And I remember driving one day, and all of a sudden I put my foot on the brake because there was a blind spot, and the whole car flipped up on the edge of the side of the road and on its top, on its roof. And I was hanging upside down, and all I could remember is just screaming, seeing all this like a TV screen, and it was like all these things were flashing, like it was like these images and visuals of like my life and that leaving. Everything was moving so quickly, and then it was that kind of black and white TV again, like flashes of different memories and things. And then honestly, I thought I'd died, because I'm surprised that I'm even still here. But luckily someone come and took me out. I mean, this talk about spirit, like looking after me. I had someone come out in the middle of nowhere. This was in the middle of nowhere, and pull me out of the car. Because if it hadn't pulled me out of the car, someone would have probably driven into me and driven, because it was a blind spot area. It's a bit of a danger area.
Mhm.
And I was fine. I had no injuries,
Wow.
considering the damage of the car was like pretty much crushed and glass everywhere. I don't know how I'm here, really.
Wow. How did that happen? Did you just hit like an area that you when you were driving, it just kind of went off, or was there any?
Yeah, it was weird. It was like I was driving in the blind spot, and I just for some reason it was like put the brake on, so I
Hmm.
slammed the brake
Yeah.
and then hit the curb. I
Hmm.
don't know how I swerved, and then it just went 360 on the roof, and it was a KA as well. And these KAs, they're curved, so they're
Yeah.
not exactly the most structural cars or safe cars to really drive in, and it just went on its roof.
Yeah, just a side note to people out there. This is why, driving is one of these things you got to be aware. I
Yes,
think I feel like sometimes when we're driving, we go into like a meditative state. I had
easy.
I had someone say to me one time, just as a question, they said, "Okay, you drove here, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "How many red lights did you hit?" And I was like, I don't remember any. And I probably hit like eight, but I don't remember actually stopping at the red lights. And they're like, exactly.
Yep.
So, and it's like, wow, that's kind of scary. So, when we're driving, let's be safe out there and
Yes,
bring ourselves
please.
back, be aware of your surroundings.
Be
Because I think
aware.
sometimes that can happen. It's just, and it
Oh my
happens
God,
so quick
so
that,
quick.
yeah. And I'm sure next thing you know, you're upside down. So digging into this a little bit, this is different. You say you seen your life flash, you've seen memories of your life, this
Yeah,
current life.
yeah.
I have people who've, crossed over, they go through the tunnel, they sit and they're watching a screen about their life, they see all these things that they went through, they're re-experiencing their life. We'd call that
Mm.
a life review.
Yeah,
This is different from what you had, right? This was like, or was this
yeah,
similar? Was there like a similar feeling to that? Like what do you mean by you were seeing
yeah.
flashes of your life?
Yeah, it's like plugging on the TV and you're like, what, why is the channel not working? You've got all these like lines going across the TV and then the colors coming out and it's like and it's all flying at you and it's like everything's moving so fast and you're in this vortex. It's almost like a vortex.
Oh, wow.
I would say it's a tunnel of some kind, but a very
Mhm.
fast one.
But you felt okay, so you felt out of body then. You felt in a
Yes.
different realm for a
Yeah.
moment. You had checked
Yes.
out. You had
Yeah.
okay. So
I feel
this
like
was
in
different.
tingles.
Yeah. So this is different from just, closing your eyes and thinking about what groceries you have to get later. Like, like
Oh
when
my
we have a
God. Yeah.
yeah, like when we have a thought, we can, sometimes we can we have an image in our brain, but it's not real. It's like a faint thought. So this was
Yeah.
an actual experience that you had of you're driving, your car flips, you're upside down and in a very see this is the fascinating thing is that it's around time. This is where things get really tricky, right? Because we're
Yeah.
on this time, like it's, we've been talking for a half hour, like there's time that we're moving through
Yes.
where whereas in those instances, there's no time. So you're just here 1 minute, you're there for a minute, and then you're back, and you're like, that seems so fast, but it could have been an hour, it could have been a day, it could have been 10 days, it could have been,
Yeah.
that's does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. It
Because I,
felt so
yeah.
quick. And
Hmm.
it was, I think, because I don't think I was hanging there long because this guy would come rushing into the car and got me out. But it felt like I was there for a long time. I was like hanging around, I felt like there was other energies around that like it's time to go back now. Like I could hear words. It was like it's time to go back now. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta go back. I was like, what is this? Go back? And you remember things and you remember and then you come back and then you're like, what? Where am I again?
Hmm.
And everything's illusion, or everything feels like an illusion and a blur, and you're just confused.
Which part felt like an illusion, coming back or that experience?
As a question,
Hmm.
this experience in life, reality, this is the illusion.
This feels more like the illusion. I get that all the time. I've never had someone say it the other way. So to my audience out there, 50 episodes in, I'm waiting for that person to say, no, that was an illusion. Because
Mm,
the reason I'm saying that is you'll have a lot of people who are on their deathbeds. They'll have this experience. They'll come out, doctor will walk in. They'll say, Doc, I just died and I saw this. And they're like, oh yeah, it's hallucination. You're having an illusion. You're having an illusion. And they're like, no. And in their reality, that was more real.
yeah,
When I
yeah,
keep hearing that, I've got like I'm going based off numbers here. Like
yeah,
I'm a very feeler person, but I also have an analytic side to me. So I'm kind of like that in between person that can kind of look at both sides. That's why I think I enjoy and love what I do here. But um,
Yes.
the way you took a moment there, and I had a feeling you were going to go with that. You were going to say, no, this is the because you felt the illusion part when you came back,
Yeah.
like almost like oh, okay, I'm back into this thing. Um, right?
Yeah.
Where and you're hearing people telling you it's time to go back, time to go back. The way you described it, it was like you were back to where you were supposed to be, like you were back in that reality realm, and they're like, no, no,
Yes.
go back, go back, go back. And now you're back into this. And now you're
Yes.
like, okay, here we are on the illusion again.
Yeah. And that's why I think was like so confusing. I was like, what?
Mhm.
Like again, it was just what happened? Where am I? What?
Yeah.
And again, it's like I saw everything from a higher perspective, or like how I was not injured. I don't know. I should have been. I didn't have any whiplash or anything. It was
Yeah.
like instant healing.
You're hanging upside down in your car, and you just get out and you're like, hey, time to go to work. It's like your car's demolished. That's
Yeah.
those are the moments where you think, how did that happen? Right?
Yeah.
Um, wow. Okay. Okay, so many questions. I'm gonna dig in a little bit here. So those are the three experiences you had.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure if you should keep driving, first of all. I don't
Well,
know.
after that, I did do my Pass Plus, and I'm a better driver than I ever have been now because they
Oh,
taught me how to use my spherical awareness, and
okay.
then, so I'm a really good driver now.
Yeah, it's kind of a sick joke, but it's true. You want to make sure you're driving well. And it honestly, the thing is, it's not really about being a good driver. That's why I said be aware of the people around you, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of it's
Yeah,
awareness. Be cautious when you're driving.
awareness. Yeah, yeah.
So wow, okay. So you've had three experiences. Now, after the first one is you got into energy healing. You started working in energy at that point.
Yes, yes.
A little detail on how that progressed through your life, like just a little detail on what you do, how you got to where you are. I'm just curious personally myself
Yeah,
now
yeah,
after
yeah.
hearing your
It's
story.
fascinating. I think that's when I woke up a bit more and I was like, okay, the fact that I'm still here, there's something telling me that there's something more. So, like, my atheist identity completely shattered. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. And I started asking questions. It was like, what else is possible? And maybe there is more to life. So it was almost like asking the questions guided me to do healing and energy work. I got into Reiki, I got Reiki attuned, and started to, yeah, realize that, oh wow, I'm maybe a spiritual healer, and that's why I had to go through these things to learn, to teach others, to help other people to understand that they're not alone. And the anxiety and depression that they feel is because maybe they're just not integrated into who they are. And so yeah, that they helped me understand myself more, and therefore it helped me to, yeah, do what I do today. And then I started to connect with spirit and my guides and talk to them on a regular basis. And I wouldn't have done that before. No way. Would have called me crazy. But I am a
Wow.
little bit crazy, but yeah.
I think we all are to a point. Some of us just pretend better. So I was gonna say, so when you started digging into that stuff,
Yeah.
was there ever a shift where you were kind of like, wow, this is real stuff? Like I'm in tune with something that I didn't know existed before. Did that start to happen to you?
Yeah, it did. It did. And I started to realize that was different. And, I just functioned differently to others. And I was, yeah, just very much more aware than others. But I still wasn't as aware as I could be. So I had to work a lot on my awareness
Mhm.
and my perception and my ability to sort of time, almost like predict things. And so I started to get a lot of awareness around my abilities, and I was different. And I was just functioning differently. I call myself a humanoid. I'm a human. What a healoid.
Right.
It's a
No,
kind of different species on the planet.
so you started to embrace your oddness of being
Yes.
like not as, as normal as others. I mean, I'm there. I went to the music side of things, but when I was a kid, I always say this, I say a lot of the same things, but I remember looking around in classrooms and being completely confused by the behavior of the kids. And I'm like grade 3. I was like
Yes.
6 or 7 years old and seeing kids picking on other kids. And I'd be like, what is the purpose of that? Like, I don't
Mm.
understand the end result. Like, I don't know why they would do that. And why would he hurt her feelings? Or why would he do like I would always be questioning everything. And then I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm weird. Like, why am I thinking, why can't I be like that? Like, why? And it frustrated me as a kid because I'd be like, so I'd try to fit in, and then I'd try to do
Yes.
that, and then I'd feel like a terrible person. Like I just feel like I just annihilated the earth by doing one wrong little thing. Does that does that
Yes.
resonate?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So there was
Yeah.
always this kind of this feeling of just a big sensitivity. I didn't understand, those
Yeah.
things. I think that's why I relate to talking to people who've had NDEs and are in the spiritual realm of the world and doing things because it's just we're the oddballs, I guess. But it's nice that you were able to find yourself. It's also interesting why people sometimes have to go through NDEs or, close calls to kind of realign themselves on the path. And I
Yeah.
think one of my passions and purposes that I'm really attempting to do here with this podcast and with talking to people is trying to help people listening that feel lost, that
Yeah.
feel confused, how they can get to that place without having to go through an NDE or through some dark
Oh, gotcha.
nights. So I'm wondering, do you have any advice? Like, what if you could go back to your younger self, like what would you do any different to try to get to where you are now without having to, and I know you probably see what you went through as blessings now, but
Yeah.
is there a way to do that in a less intense form?
Yeah. I mean, you can do inner child work and you can connect into the inner child. I would say to her that it's okay to be different on the planet and it's part of your purpose and what you're here for. You don't have to feel alone. You just need to embrace who you are and understand that you are different. You were born to be different, and that's not a wrongness, it's a strongness.
Mm.
And yeah, you're here to make a difference and help people. Not everyone's going to like you, but it's not about being liked, it's about being yourself. And there are community of people on this earth. It's still very strange to spend time with, and those maybe are your people, and it's okay. It's okay.
I really like that. It's not a wrongness, it's a strongness. I like
Yeah.
that term. I haven't heard that before. So it's, you know, you were an atheist, you were a non-believer, you were someone who kind of saw life as almost in a way almost pointless.
Pretty
And
much.
that's a very sad place to be and I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's sad for the
Yeah.
soul. It's sad for the human because then you
Yeah.
feel completely worthless, not useful, not, needed. And I hope people can see that we are all needed. We're all here for a reason, right?
We are.
So, did if I were to say to you now,
Hmm.
do you believe that? I'm sure I'm looking at what you do now. You're a psychic medium, you're an energy healer, but I just like to hear you say it. Do you feel there's more beyond this world when we're done on this incarnation? Do you believe there's more that happens?
Yes, yes, because I I'm always connecting to that every day now, and I realize like, okay, well, there's so many messages from spirit, and I see it as a consciousness. It's more of a consciousness that we can connect to anytime for creation, for ideas, it doesn't have to be just about speaking to a loved one or getting the energy of them. It's about creation, creating our life. And downloading in some information and knowledge from the consciousness that is readily available to us.
Mm.
So we can access that, and it's like on tap. We have that at our dispense, and it's we just learn to tap into it, and it's there. But yeah, we can actually use it to help us enhance our life, but we can also learn to make peace with death, and that's what I've done now. Maybe made peace with it,
Mhm.
because I realized that yeah, I can't wait to the next life to see what I'm going to be doing there.
Right. Absolutely. Actually, touching on that, that's a great segue to what I was just going to ask you is I'm just curious of your own opinion. These are all our opinions, but
Yeah.
Do you have a belief system? So you have your you, right? So there's Morgana you, this person that you
Yeah.
were born in, you were given that name. That's who you are. But you also have the soul self of who you now realize is connected to something different through your
Mhm.
experiences. Do you believe that there is the opportunity or the experience that the soul would like at times to reincarnate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that feels true to you?
Yeah, only because I've done so much work on myself where I've tapped into my past lives and what I did in past lives, and I got all these all this information about what I did in past lives. So, if there's past lives, then there's future lives that we can tap into also. So we actually can, with theta healing, which is an amazing tool, we can actually like transcend time, and you can actually tap into your future self and ask that future self questions and or reincarnate that future self if you want. But yeah, there's all ways in which you can go back or go forwards to get more information. And I do believe that we reincarnate. Yeah, because I've seen it.
That's fascinating. You said, just to touch on something, you mentioned this theta healing that you do.
Yeah.
I wondered if you could just give a little more detail because that's probably some of the work you do. And also, is that in relation to hypnosis? So people who like
Mm.
future life hypnosis, I've seen some of those YouTube videos are really cool to watch where people are like in the year 3500 and it's, um,
Yeah.
I wondered if it's similar to that or if it's a little bit different.
It's a little bit different where you're fully aware and awake when you go into the theta state, but we're actually accessing your memories, your past life memories in theta. It's like a meditation kind of energy work practice where I ask you questions. So if you've got a challenge in your life, I will ask you the questions and ask you, well, when was the first time you felt that? And then it could be like, oh, it happened like 7 years ago. Or you start getting the awareness information. Oh, hang on, it was a generational thing, it's a historical. I was a queen, I was a king, I was doing this. I'm seeing a lot of death, I'm seeing murder, I'm seeing things, and this is what I'm getting. And then you have to learn the lessons from it and the virtues from it for you to release that karma and heal that trauma so you can move forwards. And yeah, it's powerful. It's very simple and easy to do. It's actually quite fun.
It's interesting. I've had a past life regression done about 10 years
Wow.
ago. And yeah, I have it recorded. Sometimes I go back just to listen to it because I just think it's funny. In one of them I was talking like a woman and I was talking about how beautiful I was and my how I
Wow.
liked my ankles and I was Greek and I had this flowing dress and I'm a pretty masculine dude. Like I'm very like, if there's a spectrum of like, I'm pretty over here. So I remember coming out of that and being like, what did I just do? Like, what was I was almost embarrassed coming back into the human because I was like, oh my gosh. So I listen back though, and I have sympathy for that. I'm like, okay, that's all right. It's like whatever that was, I don't know, but it is
Yeah.
fascinating. It sounds similar to what you do there. Mine was more just I was explaining the experience. I didn't really dig deep with the hypnotic, the person who was conducting it. We didn't really dig into healing as much. It sounds like
Oh,
yours
okay.
kind of goes into it and then tries to heal through maybe past life or future life wounds. That gets
Yeah.
weird. How do you have had future life wounds? Well, timelines, right? Like we don't really understand
Timelines.
get into that, but where do people find you? Like how do people work with you if they're interested? I'm just curious. Sorry if you're okay
Yeah,
sharing
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn at Morgana Marie. Just come and follow me on there. And my website at morganamarie.com. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have um, close calls with death, we'll call it. We're not going to call it near death experience. These are people who've, they maybe had a heart attack, they've had surgery, they come back. People ask them, what did you see? Did you see something? They say, nothing. It's black.
Mm, mm.
And then you have people who will have this entire experience that feels like 400 years compared to here, and they explain it. And then you'll have people going even further that I've talked to, where they were telling everyone they saw nothing. And then 25 years later, they say, actually, here's my story. This is actually what happened. And then people say, okay, why did they say they saw nothing? And all of a sudden they seen everything. This has happened a lot. And it's not really, and I've had time to kind of think on it. And I've said this. I truly believe a spiritual experience can be very personal more than anything in the world, right? And if you're
Yeah.
someone who either is a non-believer or you're someone who even is a believer, And then you have this experience and you come back and everyone's asking you what you experienced. Now, let's say you come back and you know now, without a doubt, that we are beyond this,
Yeah.
but it's so personal. I could see people holding that. This is my opinion, everybody. I could see people
Yeah.
holding that back and not wanting to
Yeah.
talk about it. I was curious if you feel that way
Yeah.
too, if people could be doing that. I believe some people probably have nothing. I'm not taking
Yeah.
away their experience. But
Yeah.
I also believe there are people who probably have seen something, but they maybe don't feel it's necessary to share. I'm
Yeah.
curious your opinion on that. And if it's opposite of mine, that's totally
Yeah.
fine
All
too.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people were scared of it. I was until I realized over the last few years what happened. I was like, oh, actually, that's what happened. So I kind of blanked it out and blocked it out because
Mm,
it's scary. It can be like quite a scary thing to feel like that's what's happened and you don't feel like you are on the same wavelength anymore. It's quite a grieving process actually. And there's a grieving process that goes through to be able to process what's happened there. So
mhm.
I think that's what a lot of people avoid it or maybe ignore it or push it away. A lot of why people ignore or try to push away healing because they think it's going to be heavy and difficult, but actually it doesn't have to be. It can be very enlightening and very light and empowering and insightful.
That's why I love the organizations like the Ions Group. I've spoke with a few people. I spoke with the director of Ions.
Right.
I've spoke with people who are, constantly going there and talking because it probably is a feeling of you said it perfect, like grieving, because you're grieving. You could be grieving
Yeah.
the person you were before your experience. You could be
Yes.
grieving the fact that, oh my gosh, I am more than this. And now you almost feel like now I have a responsibility in my life. I have to take,
Yeah.
and so I can see that being very stressful.
It
And
is.
I could see that being why people wouldn't share it for a long time. And I have
Yeah.
compassion for that because unless you go through it, you don't know it. Like, and I
No.
don't encourage anyone to go through it. So,
No.
just try to find yourself while we're here, right? But yeah, thank you for sharing it the way you did. That's
That's
perfect.
okay.
And do you have a fear around death at this point?
Am I scared of death? No, I'm more scared of public speaking than I am deaf now. I just started public speaking this year. I'm more scared of that than I am deaf. It's just the most bizarre thing. Um, but yeah, with death now, there's a peace around it. There's
Mm,
definitely a peace around it. If I'm scared of anything, it would be more losing my parents than anything, and then me losing me because there's no one else really in my life to I've got friends and that, but not a family. So there's not really anything to kind of fear losing in a way. I think
hmm
I've let go of a lot of my ego constructs as well. So I don't really like to attach to sort of things.
hmm
So there's not as much of a fear around death, but yeah, it's a big one. It's one of the most common fears, fear of death and fear of public speaking.
Yeah. I
But they're
had to
like
get o-
very opposite.
I had to get over public speaking once I started playing shows. I was a very introverted kid and I just had to like put on my extroversion and I learned to love it a bit more. Now here I am and I'm like, I'm I just I guess that part of me just died somewhere. Like holding
Yeah,
it back. You said something interesting. You said, the fear of losing parents, and I'm sure a lot of people have that, or losing grandparents or great grandparents or best
yeah,
friends or and I think the interesting thing is people who are in touch with what happens next, you're likely not in the fear, and I'm not speaking for you. You're not in
yeah,
the fear of what's going to happen to them because you kind of know there's something going to
yes,
happen. It's really about your fear of you not having them in this
yes,
incarnation, right? And that is a
yes,
difficult thing. But do we still have, being a psychic medium, do we still have those people around us? Do we still, their energies are still here? I mean, I
absolutely.
lost someone close to me about a year ago. Is that
Mm,
person still, should we be acknowledging that that person's energy is still here and we can talk to them? Or is that just us
absolutely.
trying to feel better about ourselves, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Can make that up in our minds. I used to do that, but honestly, they're all around. You can feel them. You can feel them around. They're around. If you smell them around, just they're probably there. If you get a sense they're around, they're around.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like those moments when you just start talking and they're there and
Yes.
you're like, okay, I know you're here, so I'm going to talk. And then you think,
Yeah.
okay, is anyone looking? Like, okay, I'm home alone. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I've had those, so that's great.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. They
So
want to be acknowledged. It's great to acknowledge them. Yeah.
yeah, because they're just there, it's the energy, right? It's the energy
Yeah,
moving through.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this has been a great talk. Thank you so much for coming on. I always leave it with the final question, and it's, if you had to sum it up or come up with something that just comes from your heart,
Hmm.
why are we here? Why do we come here?
We come to Earth to learn. I believe it's a school, a school of consciousness. Yeah, to learn and evolve and yeah, heal ultimately for a better world, better planet. It's evolution.
Perfect. I'm gonna add a bonus in there. You said to heal. Are we to heal? Are we coming here, do you believe, to be this baby and then to start growing into childhood and then go through traumas and heal through all that? Or are we healing our spirit?
I believe we're healing our spirit. Yeah. We're here to heal our spirit so we can live actually happy and be happy. There is like life, I believe, is for living. And it's not a constant grind of having to heal yourself because there's something wrong with you. It's not about that. It's about having to shed the layers of untruths to get to our truth, who we are as beings and people on the planet, so we can come together and have a more conscious world. That's what I feel.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna leave it on that and take a moment to say thank you so much for coming on again and
You're
talking to the
welcome.
audience and sharing your
Thank
experiences.
you.
I know it, like we said, it can take a little bit to do that. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you and I appreciate you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And yeah, and speaking to the audience, I always say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe so that these messages can get out. If you know somebody that this could help, share it with them because it's why I'm doing this. It's why we're talking.
Yeah.
So, we want to try to bring awareness to everybody. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for your time, Joe. Thank you.